Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it is my Week 16 power rankings for the 2023 NFL season. Thanks for coming back. Make sure to hit the thumbs up on this video. It is the quickest, easiest, and the freest way to support me in this channel and our growth going forward. Still looking to get to that 1,000 subscriber count real soon. Real soon. Please help me out with that. And, of course, leave your thoughts on my power rankings in the comment section below. It's all greatly appreciated for the algorithms and the discourse. Without further ado, let's get to it. So as always, we go 8 by 8 for each grouping here, and we're going to start with Houston. They're still in last. They're the only ones in the bottom 8 who didn't move a spot. Now, I got to give them credit where it's due. This is 2 weeks in a row now. They've taken a team significantly better than them right to the limits and could have won both games. Granted, I don't think that they outplayed either one of those teams. Looking at the stuff from Kansas City just this past week, I mean, Davis Mills only completed 50% of his passes. He threw for only 120 yards. But they did not give up. And they kept playing as hard as they could. They just don't have the skill guys on the team to be able to withstand a team like Dallas or Kansas City. But man, Houston, this is the true test that an organization gives to players. You know, what do you give of yourself in a game, in a practice, in preparation when the team is losing? It's really easy if you're on a good team and you're winning to work hard and to be motivated. It's a completely other thing when you're not a good team, when you're 1-12-1, as Houston is right now, when you're only putting up barely over 200 yards of total offense, but you're somehow staying in games with the Kansas City Chiefs. That says a lot. It says a lot about the character of a lot of these players. And I'm not saying that a lot of them won't be replaced. I feel like obviously a lot of them are going to be replaced either in this offseason or the impending offseason after that, through the draft, through some free agency, through some shuffling of the roster and the coaching staff. But teams that are looking for depth players, they're going to look at a lot of these guys that are right now in the starting 11 on both sides of the ball for the Houston Texans. Obviously, that aren't Laramie Tunsil or Damian Pierce, guys like that. They're going to look at them and they're going to want the kind of a character guy on their team. They're going to want that guy in the film room. So these guys are playing themselves into having jobs going forward. It's just probably not going to be with Houston based on the circumstances of their record. But there are people that are not going to have a job, at least in the position they have it for sure next year, and that's Jeff Saturday. Boy, did the Raiders get caught napping in that game, because God, that comeback was amazing to witness in real time. Watching Minnesota make that comeback against the Colts showed a lot of character of the Colts, and it showed a lot of just inability from the Indianapolis Colts on a roster level, at a coaching level, to be able to make the proper adjustments at halftime to sustain a 33-point lead. Absolutely brutal. I wouldn't say that they're worse than Houston just because they do have better overall players on the roster, and they are capable, I guess, of going up 33-0 on a team. But I wouldn't trust them against any of these other teams. That includes Denver, who gets moved up a spot based solely on me dropping the Colts down. And then I dropped the Cardinals down 4 spots. They, now without Kyler Murray, they're really at the mercy of Cliff Kingsbury, who I don't think should be the head coach next year. They're not very good. They're wasting some talent for sure on that roster. I could see them dedicating a lot of their offseason to the offensive line and to most likely the secondary and the pass defense in particular, and all the aspects that go along with that. And then I got the Bears, the Panthers, the Rams, and the Saints all moving up based really solely on dropping down the Arizona Cardinals. and I wanted to have the Bears above the Cardinals as well, and above the Colts in particular, because I do think that the Bears, if on a good day, they'll be able to beat both of those teams. They're a better version of these bad teams, and they somehow have less overall talent probably overall, especially with Arizona. But yeah, these other teams, they didn't really do anything to deserve going down or up, but they go up just because the Cardinals are there dropping all the way down to 29. I kept the Atlanta Falcons sort of where they were. I did drop down the Bucks. I do think the Bucks are still the best team in that division, though barely, as you can see by the rankings here. But I put them one spot ahead of Atlanta just because I do feel like they're better than Atlanta, and Atlanta I do feel is better than the Saints overall. But the Bucks are not good. I said that game against the Saints 2 weeks ago, when they came back and won, I said, you cannot play 3 3/4 of football terribly and expect to win. You need to play a complete game, and the Bucks just haven't been able to do that really since the first quarter of the season. And then what happened? They went against San Francisco, and they got blown out. And then they played a good first half against the Bengals and then blew it in the second half. You can't play that way and be a success, and you can't play that way and expect to win games. And by dropping them down, the Raiders, the Steelers, and the Browns all moved up a spot. It was difficult for me to really move the Raiders up based on the circumstances of that game with the Patriots. There was a very, 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 very reversible, I'll say that, though it wasn't, touchdown to Keelan Cole, and then just the way that game ended, which brings me to the Patriots and why I dropped them down 3 spots. What the hell is going on? That was the most un-Belichick team thing I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Under Belichick, the one thing that the Patriots teams have always had, the one thing that you could always count on, is they were a football IQ team. They might not have had the overall skill, but you knew that they were the smartest players on the field. And the outright, for the lack of a better word, stupidity of Jacoby Myers, I am blown away. Now, if you really look at that play, that final play with Ramondre Stevenson, there's huge question marks, which is another reason why I couldn't move up the Raiders either. I literally moved them up because I dropped the Bucks down so far. Is Ramondre Stevenson was really, if he had held on to that ball and just sort of trusted himself, he might have scored. Which is wild. Which is absolutely wild to be a thought. Incredible. But he decided, for whatever reason, he got a giant gain, and it got into his head where he's like, hey, we might be able to win this. And instead of just keeping the ball for himself and trying to win it himself, he decided to start the lateral, and I guess that got Jacoby Myers all excited, thinking that he needs to lateral it. But it's embarrassing. It's the dumbest play in NFL history. Show me a dumber play in NFL history. These were starting offensive players at the end of a game with a game tied. You don't get dumber than that. I dropped the Jets down just because I don't trust their offense. They're way too inconsistent on the offense, and just leaving it up to that defense, a young defense at that, in some really key positions. It's not conducive for projecting a lot of success. I think next year, once they have an offseason to sort out and knock off some of the excess fat that they got on that team, I think they'll cut Carl Lawson and open up, I think it's $15 million in salary cap in that one swoop. And then they can cut Corey Davis also, free up another 10, and between those two cuts, they won't even accrue $1 million in dead money. So those are 2 cuts that I think are essential for them to make, and they'll be able to use that 26 million along with the extra cap room that they have, and I think they're going to be very dangerous this offseason in free agency, getting a lot of big pieces coming in, especially because of the amount of success that they've had. I think free agents will sort of look at this team as one that is definitely on the rise and on the rise quickly. I moved up Jacksonville mostly because these other two teams have got bumped down. I would have moved them up a little further, but then once I started to assess the upper 16 in the NFL, I just wasn't as confident to put the Jags ahead of any of them. But it is close. It is very close. Green Bay gets to move up just because I dropped down the Jets and the Patriots. They did win. Green Bay did win against the Rams. But the Rams are one of the worst teams in the league. So it's hard to really give them any type of significant boost. I dropped down Washington 4 spots. I moved up my New York Giants 5 spots. Now, I'm going to explain this as to why these saw significant jumps and significant drops. As a Giants fan, I walked into this game expecting a loss. Not because I think that Washington's in particular are better than the Giants. It's because of the way the schedule worked out. Washington played the Giants at home. Giants on the road. It was in Giant Stadium. And they tied. The Giants then had to move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. So they were doing nothing but consuming the Philadelphia Eagles. Tape, scheme, practicing against them, the practice squad working that offense, trying to figure out a way to get to the Philadelphia Eagles. Then they had to turn around and go back to Washington to get out of the mindset of the Eagles and try to get back into the mindset of the Washington Commanders. Washington's giant advantage was they got 3 straight weeks of Giants study. They went 3 straight weeks, 21 days of nothing but New York Giants football. Studying everything they did. They got to watch their own game that they played against them. They got to watch that Eagles game the Giants played the very next week, plus whatever game it was that they watched, whatever parts of the games they watched in the lead up to the first game. So they had all that of just consuming the New York Giants. And then on top of that, they got to play in their home stadium, and they still lost. Now, you can tell me about the pass interference call at the end of the game. And, I mean, on the exact same play, completely ignore the fact that Kayvon Thibodeau was poked in the eyeball, which would have been a illegal hands to the face penalty, 15 yards, which also went uncalled. So at the very least, they decided we're not going to call a penalty on this play. So they didn't call a pass interference in the end zone. They didn't call a 15-yard illegal hands to the face on Washington either. So let's call that a wash, and the play is the play. Washington, the fact that they were even in that situation is absolutely horrific and really, really made me question the fact that I had them so high, because that game was handed to them on a silver platter that they should have won. And it was a must-win situation on top of that. If they won, their chances of going to the playoffs went up to 90%. So, huge disappointment. One of the most disappointing games of the year by any team when you look at the context of what happened and the lead up to that game, and the Giants being able to win that game, one of the more impressive victories based on that context as well. And with Washington dropping down, that allowed the Seahawks and the Dolphins to move up. I kept the Titans where they were. They're on a bit of a skid here. You know, they've been playing some good teams. I'm not ready to drop them completely out yet. I still like them better than the teams that I have below them, though it is close, like I said when I was talking about the Jaguars. I dropped down the Ravens 2 spots because the Lions have to move up. They are now the 9th team in the NFL. Yes, I said it. Who would have thought that? I was pretty high on the Lions in my original power ranking series that I did preseason, but I didn't have them this high. I think I had them 26, and people had them dead last, which is unimaginable. If they make the playoffs, which I'm cheering on that they do, that they get that 7th seed, they're going to be a team that nobody's going to want to play just because of how much they're able to put up in terms of points on offense, and they play hard, man. They play hard. They're gonna be a tough out if they can find their way into the playoffs for sure. But they're definitely gonna be a destination for some veteran NFL players come this free agency period. So I think they're gonna improve a lot in free agency. And then they got all those draft picks coming up as well. So they might be able to do some damage in 2024. I moved up the Chargers one spot. They seem to be figuring it out, getting a bit of a rhythm to them. I dropped down the Cowboys just because they've had 2 bad weeks in a row. They might be able to catch the Eagles this week if Jalen Hurts doesn't play, but I had to drop them down. And by doing so, that moves up the Bengals and the Vikings. Couldn't move up the Vikings into the top 4, even though they had that amazing comeback victory. They're still not better than these 4 teams, I don't think. And I didn't move up the 49ers past the Eagles just quite yet, because the Eagles, they're still hot. They're still winning games. They're still doing it. So until they actually start losing, or if the 49ers can win out this year, I might have them at number 1 for my end of regular season power rankings. But as of now, it's still got to be the Eagles, as much as it pains me. I didn't move the Chiefs just because, they fell asleep against the Texans. They just fell asleep against them. They took them lightly. They're looking ahead to the next week. You can't be mad. I'm not going to move them down. The Bills played the Dolphins really hard as well. That was a good game. Very even matchup for them. And if it came down to it, I still think the Chiefs would beat the Buffalo Bills. So I wasn't going to move Buffalo ahead of them, even though Kansas City did almost blow it against Houston this week. And there you have it. All 32 NFL teams ranked from worst to last. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And of course, like I said at the top, hit the like and the subscribe. It's the easiest, quickest, freest way to support me in this channel and our growth. Kick up those algorithms. Thank you again, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.